Hey y'all. Today we're going to talk about Monica's birth story. To say this video is overdue is an understatement. She's 9 months old. I was waiting for there to be a convenient time or, it all to line up for me to do this video, and that's never going to happen. I'm a mom. I have things to do. I'm also a working mom. It's just never going to be convenient. So I said, I need to get it together and do this video. So I got laundry in the bag, needs to be folded. I got stuff over here on the nightstand. I hope y'all don't mind because I definitely don't care. All right, let's get started. I got a glass of wine and I'm just gonna sit here and tell this story. It's been really important to me to document the birth of Monica, my first child, because it was an amazing experience, and I'm just really proud of my natural birth story. She's taking a nap. So, I had a fairly easy pregnancy, not too many issues. It was very hot, so I did have actually a few spells of like almost passing out from the heat. But besides that, didn't gain any weight, didn't have any health issues, anything like that. I almost always, the whole pregnancy, pretty much knew that I did want to have a natural birth, because when I had my confirmation appointment at the doctor's office, it just wasn't super personal. And I just kind of was like, I feel like I can find something that's more in my lane, and a doctor that's for sure going to be there to deliver the baby. Well, not necessarily a doctor, of course. A midwife is what we ended up going with. So we interviewed several birth centers, and we ended up picking Cy-Fair Birth Center with Patty, and we love her so much. And so we were pretty much with them for most of the pregnancy, going to regular appointments and everything. So when you go through a birth center, it's more like a house. You're more like having the baby in a bedroom, basically. And they do have all the medical equipment and everything on standby if something goes wrong. If it's really serious, then you would get transferred to the hospital. But those odds are extremely unlikely, which is why my husband and I were comfortable going that route, because we did want something personal. I didn't want any medication. I didn't want a bunch of people in the room looking at my naked body and all of that. I just knew, what I wanted to do. I wanted to walk around. I wanted to be in the tub, all things that are generally hard to do in the hospital. So with Monica's birth, I actually did go into labor on my due date. It was actually at my best friend's gender reveal for her baby. And I didn't say anything when I started having contractions. We had had a false alarm a few days prior, so I didn't say anything because I didn't know if it was for serious, number one. For serious, if it was for real, number one, and number two, I didn't want to steal their shine. I wanted them to have their moment, and I knew I could just tell my husband when we got ready to go. So I was having contractions basically all throughout the gender reveal, and the contractions feel like, a lot of people say period cramps, and that's fair. That's a fair thing to say, but it's deeper, if that makes sense. So how your period cramps kind of start in your lower pelvic area, your diaphragm, I guess. It's coming there, and then they kind of spread around your hips to your back, and then that's when you have back labor. Every mom doesn't have back labor. I definitely did. So it's kind of like period cramps in your back, and it was very intense. But when they first started, of course, they were not that bad. It was very shallow. I've had bad cramps before, so I was definitely used to that and could handle that. So they started around noon at the gender reveal. By 5 p.m., I knew, things were pretty underway. I was sure that she was gonna be coming, and I was so excited. So we decided to call my mom and my sister, who was supposed to be taking all the pictures and videos and everything, and they came over shortly after that. Now, that part was frustrating because we have a 1-bedroom apartment, and it's really spacious for me and my husband, but for anybody else that's spending the night and is not sleeping on the floor, it's a little crowded. Like, we were kind of all bunched up on top of each other. I was having contractions. We were trying to watch TV to distract ourselves. My husband refused to go to sleep because he wanted to be alert in case anything happened. It was all like a little bit stressful for a second there, but I was glad to have my family around me. Around the middle of the night is when things got intense. We do have a jacuzzi tub, so I was able to get in the tub. And when you get in the water while you're having contractions, it almost takes the pain away completely. When it just feels like you're floating, it's instant relief. And it just made me so glad that we had a nice sized tub that I could fill up and get in there and get through it. So I was getting in the tub, getting out of the tub, getting in the tub, getting out of the tub. Because the only thing was I was so tired, but I couldn't sleep in the tub. Oh, she's awake. I was so tired, but I couldn't sleep in there. So I was getting in, getting out, getting in, getting out. And that basically went through the whole night. So we did call Patty once things were like, getting more intense, and we kind of just let her know what was going on, just so she'd know like we need to come in whenever it got more serious. And she told us, just relax at home as long as you can. She didn't want us to come in until basically, you feel like you're getting ready to have the baby, because you're more comfortable in your own house. So we hung out around the house. My husband actually started passing out because he had stayed up all night. He didn't listen to me. He stayed up all night in case we needed to rush to the birth center. And so by 6-7 a.m. when the contractions were peaking, he was like passing out. So he was trying to do counter pressure. Definitely look that up if you're having a baby. Look that up. Have your partner, your birth partner, your husband, whoever, figure out how to do counter pressure, because you're going to need it. So he's trying to do it, but he's literally like passing out, while he's pressing on my back. So I would have the contraction, wake him up, and then he would press and then pass out. And then that was our routine for at least a couple hours. So around noon, I felt like I wanted to go ahead and go, because the birth center was about a 40-minute drive away from my house. I didn't want to be in the car when things got really intense, because I had read a lot of birth stories where they got in the car when they were like getting ready to push, or just getting toward, getting to transition, and it made the contraction so much worse to have to sit up in the car. So I didn't want to do that. I think it was giving me a little bit of anxiety, like not knowing like when we were going to go. So I wanted to go ahead and go. So we called Patty, we kind of let her know, and she was like, well, all right, if you want to come, I'll meet you up there basically. So we get to the birth center, and the car ride actually was not bad for me at all. I had my soothing sounds in my ear, and I just kind of relaxed. My family was talking a lot, and I actually got a little frustrated with them at one point and asked them to quiet down a little bit. But as far as the ride, it was actually pretty peaceful. I was just kind of getting ready. I knew I was going to meet my baby soon, and I had a moment a little bit in the car. And I'm glad I got my wine, because I'm getting all emotional. The wine's probably why. Anyway, so we get to the birth center and we walk in, and Patty is immediately like, oh no. And my heart just dropped. I got so sad, because she said, you are not about to have a baby. You do not look like you're about to have a baby. And I was like, I am about to have a baby. And she's like, no, you need to do some walking. She's like, take a walk and come back, and we'll like see, how you're looking. So she basically said I look too good. Oh my gosh. She's up. There's going to be a little bit of commotion going on behind us. Anyway, back to the story. Patty felt like I was not far along enough. She felt like I should have stayed at home, because she was just like, you look too good. You're not going through as much as you're supposed to be going through when you're getting ready to have a baby. So she was like, we can check you and see where you're at. Or basically, you can go back home, because you don't look like, you need to stay here, basically. So I didn't want any cervical checks before, but once you are actually having contractions, everything changes up a little bit. You're kind of like, oh, I kind of do want to know how far along I actually am. So she did go ahead and check me. I wanted to check, and I was at a 4. And that was basically after laboring all night. And so I was like, a 4 is not bad, but it's definitely, I wanted to be like a 6. So but I was glad I found out. So I was a 4, and she did say, well, what do you want to do? You can stay here if you want, And I was like, I want to stay here. I don't want to drive nowhere else. I don't want to come back. Like, I'm ready to stay here. So they got my room together. I got in the bed. Oh, the sheets felt so good. I got in the bed. I was having contractions, and I basically stayed in the bed for several hours, at least until it was getting ready to get dark. I stayed in the bed, and eventually they got the tub ready for me to labor in the tub, because my contractions were getting like steadily more intense. So that period cramp feeling that I was telling you about it was getting like stronger and stronger, and it was moving faster around my hips and getting to my back almost like instantly after the contraction would start. And it would last for like a whole minute, and then it would go away immediately. And it's like it never happened. So in between, I was fine, but I was just so sleepy. So I was just passing out immediately after it was over. So I was getting in the tub, and that was, like I told you before, instant relief. And I actually wanted like really hot water. And Ashley, the midwife assistant, I guess is what she is, she didn't want me to have the water hot. So I was trying to sneak and like make the water hotter. And she actually like at one point was like, you cannot turn the heat up anymore. Like, it's not safe. You need to just have it like be warm. And I was like, oh, fine. I was getting irritated because I was ready to get this baby out. So in and out of the tub, and at one point I did start losing my mucus plug, and my husband had like looked into a mucus plug, so he was actually the person to see it, because by that point I was completely naked, just in and out of the tub and on the bed, and he actually saw it on my leg. So he was like, babe, I think that's that thing that you were talking about. We were like, oh, okay, great. So that's definitely a sign that things are, moving right along. So that was a little bit of a positive boost for me. So eventually the contractions were ridiculously intense, definitely extreme. I never did consider going to the hospital. I never did feel like, oh my God, I need an epidural. I never did feel like that. And it might be because I did, I don't want to use the word train, but I did prepare myself for pain. I knew that it was going to hurt, and I knew that I didn't want medication. I knew that, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. And my birth team was very supportive of that. So I knew that if at any point I said I do want to go to the hospital, my whole family was going to be like, no, you don't want to do that. You want to have a natural birth. You didn't want medication. This is how you wanted things to go. So I never, had like a serious moment of doubt. I'm sorry. Here, baby. I never had a serious moment of doubt. So eventually, things got intense, and I actually got a little bit scared. Oh my gosh. I actually got a little bit scared at one point because I was feeling like a pulling from my bottom. Like, it was like whenever I had the contraction, it would kind of yank me down, and like it was a force, just a force that I was not in control of. Like, every time I would have the contraction, yanking me down. And I told Patty about it, and she kind of sat down with me, and that was just a beautiful moment. She sat down and she was like, what are you scared of? And I kind of explained it to her. Hold on 1 second. Mom life. Anyway, Patty sat me down and she said, what are you scared of? I explained it to her, and she was like, I think you're ready to have your baby. Do you want me to check? Because, we could see what's going on. Like, maybe that'll make you feel better if you know exactly where you're at and you know how things are going. So she did the check, and she looked up at me and she said, we're ready to have a baby. And I got scared again. And I was like, oh, I don't know. Can she just stay in there? And she was like, are you ready to have this baby? And I said, yes. And right when I said yes, Patty and Ashley got everything together. They got the pads out. They got the medical equipment. They got a flashlight. It was like game time. They got everything together, and we got ready to push. So she told me, actually, my bad. While she was doing the cervical check, the second one, she told me, like, give a little push for me and let me see, exactly where the head is, or like how close she is to coming out. So I did a little push, and she was like, oh my gosh, so good. Like, that was a great push. So when we got ready to push, she said, well, why don't you push in that same position? Because I felt like that was a great push that you did earlier. Why don't you start in that same position and see if we can get her out like that? So I started pushing, and nothing was happening. Everyone was being very supportive, but we all knew that it just wasn't working out that way. So Patty said, why don't you squat down and we'll push her out that way? So I squatted down and I pushed, but it hurt. It kind of like, it was a little stretching, if you know what I mean. So it hurt, and I was like, oh, it hurts. And Patty was like, it's gonna hurt. Like, you She was like, you basically need to like let that go. It's going to hurt. Everything we do right now, this pushing phase, it's not gonna feel good. It's gonna hurt. You're gonna have to let that go. So I like, I love Patty's tough love. I had a great midwife. But anyway, so I had to get that out of my head. I was like, okay, this is game time. I need to get it together and push the baby out. We tried a couple other positions, but we actually eventually ended up back in that same position, squatting down. I had my mom behind me. They had her hold my arms like this to like give me kind of a brace so I could push. And my husband was down basically under my legs to catch the baby. They showed him what to do, and they helped him like hold his hands in the correct way so that when she came out, he could catch her. And total, all of that took about 20 minutes, maybe. It was not a long time to push. And so I pushed a few times, and I got her head out, and they asked me, did I want to feel her head? I said no, because I was like in the zone. I said, no, I don't want to feel her head. I want to get her out, and I want to hold her. My mom actually reached down and felt my baby's head instead of me. I'm still mad. Anyway, I kept pushing, and I got her out, and everyone just started crying at once. We were all crying. We were all crying and emotional. He got her. He immediately gave her to me, and I was just holding her body on my chest, her warm. Oh, man. Oh, my mom. So this was 9 months ago, and I'm still this emotional about it. To give you an idea of what it's like to have a baby without medication, because I do think that had something to do with it. Is that I really went through everything to get her here, and both of us were so completely aware and in the moment. And she came out, and she was crying, and I was crying, and it was just like love at first sight. It honestly was, and I mean, that's what everyone says when they have a kid, and I think it's just true. That's just how you feel when you're a mom. So they turned the lights on. We got her all cleaned up. She was exactly 8 pounds. She was beautiful. She's the love of my life. We named her Monica, and we just love her so much. But I really wanted to do a natural birth story because I read so many and I saw so many when I was deciding that I was going to have a natural birth, and it was really important to me to add my own experience to all the information out there in the world for any mom that's thinking about having a natural birth, that's thinking about, getting out of the hospital. She doesn't have any support in her life like I didn't, and that's something that she wants to do. I definitely support it. I think you should 100% find yourself a midwife and have your natural birth. All right, I also wanted to show you guys the little person that we did all that work for. This is Monica, and she's the most beautiful girl I've ever seen. Say hi. You're looking at me. Say hi. Say hi. Thank y'all so much for watching. I really appreciate you taking the time. And if anyone has any questions about natural birth, about the experience, about pregnancy at all, this is my first child, but I've done a lot of research, and I'm always available to talk about it.